So update, North Carolina, we got scratched door, dung up. Well, it's not dinged actually, it's just scratched up by a Mercedes. So always park far away. Pro tip, even when you're on vacation, park far away from people. And also update, Winston likes to find shade wherever he can. Come on, Winnie, that's dangerous. So also on the Badlands, everyone here has a jack truck and tires that stick out. Some are even jacked up in the air, which I don't get, because even when they're going through the sand, well, I guess that transfers weight to the back. So if they keep it in 2x4, or they only have a 2x4 truck, maybe they have more chances getting through the sand when they're, you know, in airplane mode. But we also got this stone chip. So come on, man. I guess we'll, it's a beautiful day, so it's all right. All right. Everything's all right.
What are you doing, John?
I'm trying to see the lights. So pro tip in a Bronco, either put your seat all the way down to the ground and hope you see the lights, or just drive in very elderly mode. So
Grandma mode.
Yeah, that's a little pro trick. Another pro trick, the seat. We took off the top, and in taking off the top, sometimes your knee will push into the seat, and we had a seam kind of like pop up, and it was very uncomfortable for my posterior area. And it was, well, very uncomfortable for my posterior area. I was trying to push into an area that should not be pushed in. So a little trick, I lived with it for a little bit, but then pulled over and put my knee back along the seam, going left and right with some weight, and it seemed to just pop it back in. So if anyone's having trouble either in their Maverick or any Ford product, seat seam, I've heard of it on F-150s as well, just push a little bit of weight with your knee. So that happened when we were taking off the top. Another one, when you're doing hotel rooms, bring a candle, because it might smell funny when you arrive, but it'll definitely smell funny after a big supper. And I'm engaged to Marie, and I want to keep it that way. I want to keep her in my life, so bring a candle to the bathroom with you. So now for a more serious pro trick. I'm noticing a lot of people, even in town, but especially as they come off the beach, they're still in 4x4 mode. So your back tires squeal even if you don't take off very quickly. And actually, the more it's gonna squeal and kind of grind out all those gears in the back up, is the slower you go. Being in 4 high on the highway isn't a big deal. If you have 4 automatic, well, you can just keep it in 4A all the time. But 4H is for either high speeds, which it's good, you know, once a week, put it in 4H. So the oil moves around, swashes around, and oils all those internal gears, because oil can kind of settle and sort of have the tops of your gears possibly not covered in oil. So I like to play it safe to avoid having to do any work later on, you know, in like 3 years, 4 years to the transfer case or any of that. You're going to want to put it in 4H once in a while. But coming off the beach, remember to take it off 4H, and also definitely remember at slow speeds, do not drive in 4H. So that's actually a pretty important, that's a pro tip, I'd say. And we'll be back with more tips from the road. But a big one and a huge surprise is, even when we drove this for 20 hours, I drove for about 13 or 14. Marie drove for the last, give or take, 7. And we're actually happy getting back in the Bronco after, what was it, about 7 days at Ormond Beach, right north of Daytona. So we're excited to get back in the Bronco. Winston was excited to get back in the Bronco, and I guess being that this is a bit of an off-road town, because everyone seems to be lifted and head to the beach, we actually got waved by a Jeep. We were surprised, but it was cool. So back to more Bronco tricks. We're now leaving Ormond Beach. We're heading north, and we're doing 75 miles per hour. Big trick, you know, listen to the locals. We were trying to do 70, and we were getting passed within inches of our bumper, so kind of stressful situations. One guy even passed us doing 95 to 100 miles per hour. By then we're doing 75 like we are now, and it is dangerous to drive slow. So listen to the locals, follow the traffic. Now what's really cool is I'm doing 75 miles per hour, no angle, and we've got 18.6 miles per gallon. Now we were at 20.3 over 238 miles miles, but that 20.3 miles per gallon is because we drove in zones that were around 45 to 50 miles per hour, and that really got the fuel economy up, because previously we had been doing between 70 and 75. So we're just retesting everything. Now we are going to a north wind. 4 automatic, I can say, works great because the power distribution with the vehicle, knowing that it's warm outside, is all 100% rear wheel. So you go into your main menu, off-road options, and there you can check your off-road status. So off-road status, what's cool is we can see we're on 0 degrees, left, right, 0 degrees, forward, back. So power distribution, you can check that out too. Make sure that if you're in 4A, it's not sending power needlessly to the front wheels, as it will do in Canada on days just below freezing. The vehicle seems to know when the roads could be icy. So when they're not and they're really well salted, we just put it in 2H to save on fuel. But right now, 100% rear wheel power unless we stomp on it. Now another little pro trick: in the colder weather in Outer Banks, we had these tires at 40 PSI, 41 PSI, and now they're ranging from 42, 44, 43, and 43 PSI. You don't want to overinflate your tires, because then you're going to wear the middle of the tires. And you don't want to ride underinflated, because you'll have more contact, which is great for sand and mud and snow. But the downside to that is you're going to use more fuel needlessly. So I like to keep these tires at 40 PSI. And you know, we're on flat, and we did notice that if you're driving in a wind, into a headwind, huge difference whether you're rolling 65, 70, 75, or 80 miles per hour. It's at 80 miles per hour, even on flat, the turbos are going to be initiating, and at 75 miles per hour, those turbos will initiate if there's a headwind. So right now we're going north. If there's a wind from the north going south, we'd be driving into that headwind, and we use quite a bit more fuel at 75 miles per hour than at 65 miles per hour, just because of the turbos activating. So I often take a look at the turbo gauge, and if it's not, you know, moving around, well, then I drive a little faster, knowing that the penalty for driving faster isn't going to be nearly as bad. Trick from the road, we just picked up a huge rock, and that's because I didn't think to be driving in the lane as far away as possible as fresh laid pavement. So yeah, you can show it right up there. We'll see if filling that in can be very good before the cold weather hits it, because if the cold weather hits a chip, it'll start to crack. And once it starts to crack, you can't fill it in. So filling in the windshield is going to cost $80 or less. A whole new windshield with all this new tech can probably be what, about $500 to $1,000 Canadian, depending on the tech that's on the windshield. Bronco windshield, who knows? I'm figuring with the collision assist, where the vehicle actually brakes for you, it's gonna be probably $1,000 Canadian, so about 700 or 800 American. So we want to avoid that. And so far at 75 miles per hour, the last 28.9 miles, we've been running 19.7 miles per gallon, but in perfect conditions. No wind hitting the vehicle, no turbos working, just relying on the 2.7 liter V6 engine without its turbos functioning. So we're getting really good fuel economy because the turbos aren't working. If the turbos had to work because we're in hills or because there's a wind coming against this beautiful brick, less aerodynamic than a cow, well then of course what we do is, while we drive slower, we just stick to the far right lane and do about 65. But we'll do that test soon. Right now we want to go at the speed of the locals, because if we don't do 75, the speed limit's 70 miles per hour, and if we do even 70 miles per hour, people really dangerously cut us off. So once we're down into a zone where it's 65, we're going to go 65, probably not in the state of Florida, so we'll see how that goes for fuel economy. Another pro trick, make sure the whole family's gone to the washroom before you get to driving, because we're on our, well, we left at 9, it's 10:30. We've only been on the road for an hour and a half, and this guy had to pull over. Fun times? Fun times. We asked him if he had done his business before getting in the vehicle.
Yeah, poor little guy.
Yeah, but it's okay. We're at Buc-ee's, so let's check out Buc-ee's. World famous potty place, apparently, according to the sign. No one's running mud flaps down here. I mean, no one at all. No matter how much the truck is jacked or how much the tires stick out, no one's running mud flaps. So rocks are getting thrown all around. So especially if you're near some freshly placed asphalt, stay far away from the freshly placed asphalt because you will get a chip in your windshield. But Buc-ee's was awesome. Super clean, super nice toilets, fancier than what we've got at home. And Winston found it not too bad. Hey, you went potty here at Buc-ee's. So we just crossed over 50 miles of driving at 75 miles per hour, and we've got 19.5 miles per gallon. And for anyone who's been wondering earlier in the video of tips and tricks for long haul driving, when we got the stone chip in the windshield, we were not tailgating. We don't follow people right up against their bumper. We had no one in front of us. We were actually in the middle lane and someone on the far right lane with, of course, no mud flaps. Picked up some piece of asphalt, a stone, and it kicked up into the windshield, and we were driving beside them. So what can you do? We'll be all right. It'll be all right. All right. Okay, so I want to do 50 miles at 65 miles per hour, but we will die if we do it because it's a 70 mile per hour zone. So we got to speed up, but we're at 14 miles and we got 23.2 miles per gallon versus the 19.5 miles per gallon for the 50 miles we did at 75 miles per hour. Okay, so we're back. We're doing, this is actually kind of surprising news. We did 12 miles at 70 miles per hour, but in 4A normal mode. We got 20.8 miles per gallon. The turbos were not needing to work. Then we put it in eco mode, which forces 2H. So when over the next 20 miles, we actually went up 0.4 miles per gallon. Still no turbos working, and I was thinking, wow, why is it? We're at 2,000 RPM. There's no change in RPM. So I'm thinking maybe less rotating parts, but hopefully someone can answer it in the community. But we definitely went up 0.4 for the next 20 miles. Now we've been going into a headwind, and at 70 miles per hour, we can see right in the gauge here, well, they were just playing around 0.3 to 0.5 PSI. We're no longer, it looks like for a moment, we're no longer in the headwind, or maybe protected a little bit by trucks that are passing. But we're down to 20.8 miles per gallon again, which would make you believe we're at 40 some miles per 40 miles. Get the exact reading here. Love these little blind spot mirrors, the little mirrors in the big mirrors. That's for my distance, and the big mirror ends up being a huge blind spot mirror, so huge advantage. But we're now at 46.7 miles, and we're down to actually 20.7 miles per gallon, which would make you think that driving in eco mode is worse. But it's not. It's that driving against a headwind can easily cost 0.4 miles per gallon. So when there's a headwind going into the front windshield, this beautiful brick, when there's a headwind, that is not the time to drive 75 miles per hour or 80 miles per hour, because you'll be really penalized. And for those that complain about fuel economy, but you're doing 90-95 miles per gallon, such as a recent Maverick video, well, you're getting bad fuel economy because you're going fast. This isn't a Mustang or a Lamborghini. A Lamborghini cuts wonderfully into the wind, very aerodynamic. Well, whether you have an F-150, a Ranger, a Ford Maverick, or a Bronco, these things have pretty upright windshields. And the grills in the front, they're at 90 degrees. So all that is fighting the wind when you're going into the wind. So when you got a headwind, basically simple trick, just go 65 miles per hour. You will save you'll save a lot in fuel economy, because before we're doing 23 point something. I'll flash the photo again, but we're into 23 miles per gallon. 70 miles per hour, we're at 20.7 miles per gallon. Now we're going to go back to testing 75 if the speed limit in local traffic allows it. Come on, man, moments. I've got the door scratched, the windshield chipped, and now I just stepped in dog dew. Obviously, not Winston's, because I carry a bag wherever I go. Come on, man. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. All right. Now, we did make it back all right, despite almost getting taken completely out in Washington, D.C. But Buc-ee's definitely did make it feel a bit better. Made the trip a lot more fun. That place was really awesome. Now, I'm wondering on the show, would you like to hear from the locals about their trucks? Because I met some people with Broncos, I met some people with Jeeps, and I could share their stories if that's something that the community would be interested in. So if you've watched this video and you would like to hear about, the locals that we met, going from Canada all the way down to Florida with a stop in North Carolina and Outer Banks and all the way back, well, just let us know, because we'd gladly and happily share their stories. And we even have a few interviews that we're excited to share, but just would like to hear back from the community. Now, gotta say, Washington, D.C. was absolutely incredible. Loved checking that out. Incredibly. We were just blown away by everything that you can see. Now, we only had the day, and I think we should have stayed the week there. It was incredible. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed our trip. Thank you for the people that we met up with. People were very kind, generous, and we just had a real blast. So thanks for joining us on our what turned out to be more like 60 hours of driving, and must have been somewhere around 3,000 miles. It was a doozy of a trip, but we don't regret it. Doing it in the Bronco, to really conclude all this, doing the Bronco was fantastic. It was comfortable. I put down hours on the road with ease, and normally that is not who I am. Marie also enjoyed it. She drove less hours, but she definitely did love driving the Bronco. Now let's just hear a little bit of nonsense from her. What do you call that in French?